collaboration with Autism-Europe, and to discuss together the goals achieved and the challenges we still have to face when we talk about autism. Let's build an inclusive society for people with autism together. Now I will switch to Italian. Buongiorno a tutti.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our event. I would like to start with a quote. With a quotation, autism is part of this world, is not an isolated world. So this message is short, but it's also very important. This is the message an emotional mother had conveyed to me at the end of a lecture at the university. At that time, I was working with a rector in the Bari University, and I had the opportunity to talk with many students, with many people with disabilities. These activities, I followed this in my function as a MEP. I try to listen to and understand the families that are involved with this issue. My purpose is basically to go beyond, to really dig into this, to explore this world we share and seems to be distant sometimes. And while pursuing these objectives in 2020, over the pandemic, I've decided to launch the Out Generation project. This is a set of measures and actions for listening to the family's needs, to explore and to inquire the institutions I am in, and also to identify the priorities to be followed. This project is based on three basic pillars, which are fundamental to know this world. First, the meeting, the gathering, the encounter with the autism world. Then the second pillar is the commitment, which is very significant. A commitment does not only mean to dedicate one day to autism, but commitment means that you work on this the all year long. And then the third pillar is inclusion, which must be concrete and realistic, not just, words. But on this, there is so much to be done yet. Generation Out project purpose is to generate a network so as to really work together and to transform challenges into proposals, projects, and also opinions. That is why, after listening to various needs of many associations and families, personally, I have gone various ways. In particular, I would like to highlight three of them, which, in my opinion, deserve a particular focus. The first one is the parliamentary inquiries. By doing so, I've asked the European Commission to develop the labor market and the access to the labor market of disabled people and adults. Second, I've also tried to support and to enhance the storytelling, the discourse, the whole discourse. As an expert in pedagogy, I really wanted to insist on the need to raise the awareness and to educate in terms of difference, to educate the new generations on the difference. In order to make this world more known, for example, to the younger generations, I've chosen, for example, the new pedagogical tools. For example, this leaflet has been published. This is the story of a child, an autistic child, is aged 10. And together with his friend, a clown, and myself, he let us understand his world and also to join it. I am deeply persuaded that this kind of approach is an excellent tool to tell and to share about yourself, to say something about yourself and to say something about your own experiences. And afterwards, I have also thought of another publication, which is a collection of experiences done by parents of autistic children. This publication is to be found in a leaflet which is, of course, available. I'm sure that the fact of sharing your experiences, to talk about them, to write about them, you can enrich yourself, you can improve, you can deepen your knowledge, and you can also give more collectively. Here in the Parliament, since my membership to this institution, I have reiterated my commitment, and this kind of work is essential to get this world be better known, to know about the rights and duties, or the rights of these people. I've been the first MEP of the present legislation to host and to welcome in my office some trainees with some disabilities. I have decided to offer this this opportunity to other young people because, okay, you know, there's so many contexts where a focus is put on inclusion. You know, you talk a lot about the focus, but the barriers that you encounter every day are still too many. In the last 2 months, I'm hosting a group of autistic people coming from the Puglia region. I got to know them via the social cooperative workshops. By the way, Stefania Grimaldi, who chairs this center, will take the floor at the end of the day. So these young people are showing that these young people are exceptionally capable of bringing a duty to the end. They're doing this a lot of commitment with professionalism, as well as also with passion. So you identify tasks and purposes that correspond to their real skill and capacities, and then you provide also all the support which is necessary to succeed in this field, namely professional world. Working with them, close to them, I keep on asking and wondering what is the right moment to plan the future of a person with this kind of peculiarities. There is no doubt the answer is clear. The right moment is as soon as possible. School and education in this respect plays a very important and very peculiar role by then having a very careful focus and look at their future. A future which will help them to reorient the shift to the adulthood. So, of course, that means that you would then also access the labor market. Then the second question is then what is the starting point to orient the development of these people, of these young people? Well, I would say that you need to start from your own deep and genuine motivation, your desire, I would say even your dreams. That means that all potentials needs to be taken into account. Maybe sometimes you don't even see them and don't listen to them, but you really have to focus on them. You really have to guarantee an adult life which is full of dignity and rewards. By the way, the orientation process Yalis reminds us this, is the full right aiming at promoting yourself. Yanis reminds us that we are what we would like to be. We are what we would like to see happening in our life. We are also our dreams. And so he wrote a very famous book, and we read in there that There are two, I would say, requirements, two conditions for disabled people to be thought as adult people, and then they will become adult. The first requirement is the consolidation of a social representation, which consider them adults in all dimensions, on all sides, the psychological, the social ones, just to mention some of them. And then the second condition is that the enhanced social roles that are not just connected with the labor function you have, will be connected to love relationships, sport activities, etc. In all this, networking is one of the fundamental pillars of education. When we speak about a life project, it becomes even more pertinent when it becomes the key element to create in the various contexts connections whereby the autistic person feels fully accomplished. So the autistic subject cannot be just isolated. On the contrary, it must be fully included in the social relationship where it is possible, as I was saying earlier, create these relations, these interconnections, these exchanges, these mutual exchanges. So you will understand that in order to allow people that are autistic to obtain, to have a job and to fully realize their potential, what you need is to have the support and also the plurality of kind of support. Various approaches and facilities are being assessed to this purpose. So we're going to listen to the various practices that go into this direction. That is why we talk in terms of plurality of support. Because autistic people need to be diverse and also, and well, yes, diverse. So in terms of labor access, we need continually to focus on our knowledge, and we also need to try to challenge all stereotypes. We also need to make sure that the various proposals are grounded on research and results and not just hypotheses. Needless to say, the scientific research contribution, as well as the collaboration with various associations and families, is the key for improving the autism management. That is why, for me, data collection is fundamental, and the specific scientific research needs to be done on autism in order to adopt strategies and measures that are more and more appropriate. In Italy, maybe this is not the case yet. There is no scientific approach rooted yet. The various inputs do not always correspond to the households and families' needs. But I also have to recognize the following: the analysis, the diagnosis, and is somehow lacking. So it's something that is missing. To conclude, the access to labor. Don't forget that for these people, and by the way, yesterday in another event where we were present, Aurélie and I, employment is much more than just having a revenue and a reward. And for these people, What they need is a word what we heard yesterday, a word that has been repeated many times by all associations. 726 associations joining this event yesterday. And this word is participation, to participate. This is what was asked repeatedly yesterday. And these people, these young people want to become an active part of the society. They want to live a much more rewarding life. They want to be independent and in this respect, the so-called 64/99 Italian law does not really focus on the lost capacities, but focus on so-called residual capacities. What is then reached is to use them at the very best with the appropriate tools within the labor market. So reference is done not to the labor capacity as most of us intended to be, but to the residual professional capacities. That means the capacities that can be employed, can give a fruit, can then be deployed. This interpretation of the so-called residual skills, residual competencies, which has usually a negative connotation, in reality underline the necessity to identify what is available, what is left for developing at the highest level these capacities. I'm very much looking forward to hearing you, to participating to this working table. I am deeply persuaded that while participating and sharing, we will be able to reach shared objectives for which we are all fighting. For all this, I'd like to thank Aurélie for just everything is doing, including all the members of the council that work closely to her. Thank you very much.
Dear Chiara Gemma, on behalf of, thank you for kindly hosting us today to discuss about making a society more inclusive regarding two essential areas of life, education and employment. And thank you for your continuous support to promote awareness of autistic people rights in the European Parliament. I'm Aurélie Baranger and I'm the director of Autism-Europe. Autism-Europe advocates towards European decision makers to foster a better policy response to the needs of autistic people. We strive for more understanding of autism in society. Autism-Europe is comprised of almost 90 members associations from more than 40 countries. It represents an estimated 7 million autistic people across Europe. Self-advocates and family members play a central role in our organization. Autism-Europe's mission is to improve the quality of life of all autistic people and their families in Europe. Our priorities are to advocate for the full realization of their rights, foster inclusion and promote exchange of information, good practices and experience. It is well evidenced that unfortunately across Europe, autistic people still face a lack of enjoyment of their right to education and employment. Both rights are enshrined in the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities under the Article 24 and 27. And of course, we all realize that access to education and employment are linked. Without access to education and lifelong training, you obviously are denied opportunities to later on access employment. But it is also been evidenced that even with high academic achievement, autistic people still face discrimination to access quality employment. Major barriers to enjoy their right to education and employment are lack of accessibility, lack of reasonable accommodation, and lack of understanding and stigma. In 2023, with its campaign Building an Inclusive Society for Autistic People, Autism-Europe continues to call for a holistic approach and coordination of policies across all sectors with the active participation of autistic people and their families, both at national and EU level, to address the barriers that autistic people face in society. In 2023, the European Commission, together with disability organizations, including Autism-Europe, and representatives from the member states, are also working on the implementation of the disability employment package. The employment package will include guidelines for reasonable accommodation. It also requires member states to set ambitious targets for the employment of disabled people. To achieve better employment rates for autistic people, it is essential to combat stigma, provide access to equal opportunity, provide access to education and lifelong training, and to raise awareness of what autistic people and autistic employees can bring to the world of work. We must create the right conditions for them to access employment, notably by making workplaces fully accessible and providing autistic employees with adequate, reasonable accommodation in order to realize their right to employment. Today, we will highlight the results of 3 European projects that Autism-Europe has been involved in and that were supported by the Erasmus Plus program. Namely, first, the DiGitool project to train teachers to work with digital technologies. And of course, this project also stems from the difficulties experienced by autistic people, teachers during the COVID pandemic. Then we will present the result of the Win With You project, a project that aims to improve the inclusion of autistic people in the world of work by providing training to employers and employees, and supporting autistic people in their journeys toward employment. And finally, we will see the result of the Infuse project, which is a small-scale project started in 2022 to develop an innovative best practice for a job placement path dedicated to autistic adults in the agricultural sector. And we will also hear about another inspiring practice mentioned already by Chiara, Work-Aut. So I'm also delighted that today our distinguished speakers and project representatives are joined by some members of Autism-Europe's board that will introduce the panels and share their own expertise to enrich the discussion. So I would like to thank you all for coming with us today, for joining us, either in this room or remotely. And without any further ado, I will give the floor to Adam Harris, who is the CEO of our member organization, AsIam in Ireland. The floor is yours, Adam.
Thank you, Aurélie. Thank you, Autism-Europe, for the invitation to be here today. And I think it's welcome any initiative to promote inclusive education, particularly initiatives like Erasmus Plus projects, which foster closer European cooperation. We need to learn and share more from each other, as though our contexts are different. The barriers that autistic people face in the sphere of education are all too often the same. Education is of such critical importance in terms of opening up opportunity, facilitating inclusion, and ultimately serving as a gateway to employment for autistic people. And yet, for such a positive opportunity, for such an essential component of society, when we talk about autism and education, that's not the language we tend to hear. Very often, it's not a very positive discussion. As one parent recently said to me, when we talk about autism and education, very often what we just hear is the language of combat. We hear about people having to fight. We hear about the battles. We hear about the struggles. And unfortunately, those are still very much norms for autistic students and families in Ireland. And I know from speaking to colleagues right across the European Union. I know a little bit about some of these experiences myself. I was diagnosed as being autistic in the mid-1990s. And at the time, there was not the level of awareness of autism that there is today. And really, at that time, my parents were faced with a choice: either send me to a special school, segregated from my community, unable to access the mainstream curriculum, or go to the same school as everybody else and just be seen as the boy who was clever, but the boy who wouldn't do what he was told, the boy who couldn't sit still in his chair, the boy that couldn't follow simple instructions. So as a result, I spent the first 3 years of my education in a special school. And whilst I had positive experiences there, thankfully over time, the system began to change. And when I was 8 years old, I moved to national school or primary school, where I had the support of a special needs assistant or a classroom assistant for 5 years. Based on those experiences, I was able to go to secondary school independently. And by the time I was a teenager, I had something of a juxtaposition in terms of experience. On the one hand, I was more independent in the education system than ever before. And on the other hand, I felt less comfortable about my autism diagnosis than ever before, because very often the barriers that I experienced going through my schooling came from when other people didn't understand. And not always in a negative way, often people wanting to help, but not knowing what was the appropriate way to help. And so adding to that sense of otherness that is so often experienced by autistic young people. After my time in secondary school, I briefly went to university, but I found that transition extremely overwhelming, and I ultimately dropped out. And while I suppose my educational journey has been varied, I think overall I've been very lucky to have had the right support at the right time. But very much my experience growing up was when I had positive experiences in education, it came from when people had the training and understanding that they needed. And when I had negative experiences, it came from the absence of that. And it was these experiences that led me to establish AsIam 10 years ago. And today we're Ireland's national autism charity. And our vision is to bring about a society in which every autistic person is accepted as they are, equal, valued, and respected. And in working towards that vision, we provide support both directly to autistic people and their families, but also critically, we address autism as an accessibility barrier. For much of the history of autism, we've spoken about autism as if autistic people are the problem, as opposed to recognizing that many of the barriers faced by our community come from environmental and attitudinal barriers. And in AsIam, we work with a broad range of societal stakeholders to try and remove those barriers. Central to this is our work in schools, where we operate an autism-friendly schools programme in 100 schools across Ireland each year. And this programme aims to bring together the whole school community, parents, teachers, students, neurotypical and autistic, to create, I suppose, a vision for how inclusion can be enhanced within that school environment. And I think that is important because sometimes when we talk about inclusive education, we can diminish the discussion to a discussion around resources. Resources are immensely needed by the appropriate environment and the appropriate culture. Those resources will go to waste at the expense of the autistic person. I suppose what has always interested me in the work that AsIam has done and in the journey that we've been on over the last decade is when I tell my personal story at events around Ireland, very large cohorts of people sometimes come to find out. And that is because, unfortunately, it is far from a universal reality that autistic people have a positive experience in education. We need to work towards a point in which an autistic person having positive educational outcomes is as unextraordinary as what we would expect for every student within our education systems across Europe. I think despite the much significant work that is to be done, it is important to recognise that there has been progress. And I would suggest that that progress has been particularly in the area of awareness. The next bridge we must cross, however, needs to be in the sphere of understanding and acceptance. I think we come to this discussion at an important time. If the barriers for autistic people in education were significant and pronounced prior to the pandemic, we still do not know the long-term impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on our community. In Ireland, where we had the longest school closure period in Europe, we've seen many autistic people greatly disadvantaged. And often, instead of receiving the support that has been required, an increase in support needs has too often been met with reduced timetables, suspension, expulsion, and otherwise exclusion from the classrooms. I think when we talk about autism and education, we should challenge ourselves about how we think about it. Really, what we're not talking about is special education. Really, what we're not talking about is additional needs. What we're talking about is the same chance. Autistic people just want to have the same chance to learn as everybody else. But unfortunately, invisible barriers exist that often deprive autistic people from having that opportunity. In AsIam each year, we publish the Same Chance Report, which is a state of the community report on autistic life in Ireland. And this year, that survey was answered by 1,603 respondents, autistic people and family members. And it paints a stark picture, particularly in the sphere of education. Over 60% of respondents did not believe the education system was inclusive of autistic people based on their own experiences of that education system. Over a quarter of respondents did not have access to an appropriate school place. So as a result, I know those statistics are specific to Ireland, but I suspect they are shared experiences in many respects right across European countries. So what are those barriers and why do they exist? I think as a starting point, it's important to recognise that we have seen a significant increase in diagnosis in recent years. Just 2 years ago, our government spoke about 1.55% of children in school having an autism diagnosis. This year, they are speaking about 3.38% of students having an autism diagnosis. And unfortunately, resources have not kept up to pace with the very welcome increase in diagnosis, which we know comes from improved understanding. While there is an increase in diagnosis for many, we know that those who have the greatest barriers within the education system are often those who face the biggest barriers to accessing diagnosis. And we think in particular of girls and other intersectional minorities. It still remains a barrier that while we have a situation in Ireland that nearly 90% of young people now attend mainstream school, either in the same classroom as everybody else or in a special classroom within a mainstream school, the reality remains that many people are still travelling long distances from their community, sometimes 70 kilometres a day round trips. This is not inclusion because it is not giving people the opportunity to grow up with their peers and learn with their peers in their local communities. The other reality is meaningful integration is often not taking place. Inclusion is not about permission to enter a building. It's about being able to fully have an opportunity to learn. And too often that is still not an experience enjoyed by autistic people. While autistic people have changed significantly to enter mainstream schools, sometimes it feels like too little has changed within schools themselves. We continue to have codes of behaviour that can punish people with suspension and expulsion simply for a person experiencing a meltdown. We still have school governance structures that make big decisions about the lives of autistic students, often without the training or knowledge to make those decisions. It's of particular concern that teacher training remains non-mandatory in the field of autism, and that very often can be the root of problems. It's not just about training, it's about appropriate training that teaches about autism in a neuroaffirmative human rights model. Central to this is placing the voice of an autistic student at the heart of the discussion. Too often, discussions about autistic people still do not include the lived experience of autistic people. And this leads to stigma and so many of the barriers that we face. We need to be as comfortable educating all young people about autism as we are about all forms of diversity. We need to recognise that at a time when we talk a lot about accessibility, many of the physical environments of our schools and other educational facilities remain overwhelming and inaccessible from a sensory point of view. And critically, the consequence of this is perhaps no surprise that when the barriers that are there exist, that we see large numbers of children not attending school regularly, on reduced timetables, or not attending school at all. And of course, this is before we even begin to look at the challenges of how we support young people to effectively transition from the education system to the employment sphere, where pervasive barriers remain. But the good news is that it doesn't have to be this way. And I think there is an appetite to learn, and there is a momentum for change. How do we overcome those barriers and ensure that autistic people have the same chance within our education systems? First and foremost, we need to move away from a charity model. So many of the supports that autistic people avail of within the education system still operate on a grace and favour basis, still do not operate based on a rights basis, and are still often not compliant with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We need to listen to the voice of autistic people. We know in every area of policy, if we listen to those who are seeking to serve, we will get better value for money and create more effective services. We shouldn't think about autism as a sole standing structure. While there is a need for autism-specific policy in many areas and certainly autism-specific training, we need to autism-proof as we go. We're talking about a significant cohort of the population. And if we get all of our policies and structures within education right for autistic people, we will actually get them right for everybody. Because what is often essential for autistic students is good for everybody. We need to significantly look at regulation within the education system when it comes to autism. In particular, it is concerning that we continue to see behaviour and medical-based interventions that are not evidence-based and can be deeply harmful for autistic students. And indeed, it is of significant concern that restraint continues to take place in many schools without appropriate training. But what we really believe is that training needs to be at the heart of this, that until we have a point in which people empathise and understand with the experiences of autistic students, barriers will remain. And we don't believe this is just about teachers. This is as much about the parents of other children. This is as much about caretakers and administrative staff. It is the need to take a whole school approach to autism, because when that takes place, it can make a huge difference. We need to see fundamentally a culture shift, and we need to ask ourselves a very simple question. When we talk about the education system, what defines success? Because if we want to have an inclusive education system, we can no longer use the old metrics of success to talk about what is a good education for an autistic person within the mainstream system. Because if we can create a system in which success is a personal measure, the benefits are there for everybody. Each year, we poll a representative sample of 1,000 Irish adults on their attitudes to autism. What is really, really positive to see across every single measure, from making friends with autistic people to entering relationships with autistic people, 18 to 25-year-olds have the most progressive attitudes. Why is that? They have sat in classrooms with autistic young people. An inclusive education system for autistic people makes for a more inclusive and better society for everybody. So thank you very much. I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Adam, for this very powerful overview of what is needed in the field of education. And I will now give the floor to Anna Nogueira, who is the coordinator of the DiGitool project, and she will highlight the overview of the project. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I will describe myself first. I'm a woman, white woman with curly hair, brown, with brown eyes. I wear glasses because I cannot see without glasses, and I'm wearing a green shirt, not because Irish speaks before me, but perhaps because I'm a landscape architect and the mother of a young boy with autism. So thank you so much, everyone, but a special thank to Adam, because you speak what I feel, what I think, and I'm without words. I don't know if you read our project, but it's the beginning of our concerns and also our challenge in this project. So I need, this is one of my difficulties with ICT. I will present a DiGitool project, which is coordinated by Inovar Autismo, which is the first Portuguese association that congregates people with autism in the border, parents, and also people concerned with the human rights. This project was coordinated by us. I have with me Angélica from Autismo Sevilla. She will talk about the results, and also the professor José Nogueira from ISCTE, which is the Portuguese university who made the evaluation of the project. We also have the participation of Diversamente, Autistic Association from Sardinia, Italy, and also three other partners, CRID from a university in Portugal with access us in the communication, ICT, Intermediac, which is a Greek association with development the app and also the site and so on, and also our always partner Autism-Europe with develop all the projects and all the dissemination of the results. So, okay. First problem, I think Adam also referred this, autistic people often present difficulties in terms of communication, interpersonal and behavioral relationships. In the level of schools, and shall I say to you, this project only concerns about inclusive schools. We didn't work in special schools. We have these three countries, Portugal, Italy and Spain, where the education model is quite different. So it was a challenge, but also it was very important for us to try this model in three different countries with three different education models. In Portugal is inclusive schools. We have a very few special schools. In Italy, there are no special schools, and in Spain, it's the mixed model. So this was the first problem. In schools, as Adam said, the autistic students have a lot of difficulties, not just in learning, concentration, and motor skills, but also are disadvantaged in most of the cases because schools don't really adapt to them. Second problem is the preparation of the schools, not only the teachers, but all the schools in work with these students. And also we discovered that at least in these three countries, most of the teachers, they don't have technology skills. They don't use much technology. Then with the pandemic, all these things, like Adam said, went completely wrong. During the lockdown, these difficulties intensified further. The lack of access to technology resource, not only from the teachers, but also from the students, and the digital and material are very few, and the people with autist students, they didn't have much support. So we tried to design this project, which was direct to, sorry, I have to change. That's my disadvantage. So what did we, okay. Sorry, I'm in this one. I forgot to change the slide. Okay, this one. So we tried to design this project direct to the teachers, the regular teachers, and also the special educators who work in the inclusive schools, to work with autistic students using the ICT tools. Through the training, with this digital tool, the teacher will also work with students. So, with the participation of teachers, students, and families, we designed this project with the participation of all, because for us it's quite important we don't do something to the autistic students, we don't do something to the families, we don't do something to the teachers, we work with them since the beginning. That's how we work since the beginning. We work with autistic students, with families, and with teachers. So we developed this course, this training for teachers in these three countries, Portugal, Italy, and Spain, so that they could work with autistic people using the ICT. This training has two parts, a theoretical part and also a practical part, where the teacher needs to work in the classes and with the students. One another, not just to develop a training for teachers, but also to build a multi-resource kit and a manual. This multi-resource kit will be available soon in an app and also in the site. And in the end of projects, we will share this resource, and at least in Portugal, we will begin to work with them, with the schools, which one we are working now. So the implementation, we develop a theoretical part, learning sessions of 25 hours for teachers. These sessions, they are quite important to be learning because during the theoretical part, the teachers, they use ICT resources, okay? Then a practical application of 10 hours where the teachers, they choose a subject, they choose a problem that they have in their school or something that they need to work with a student in particular. So they develop a practical part. And this was quite important in the 3 countries. Only the teachers that finish the practical and theoretical part will be able to finish the course and have a certification. Then we have our Greek partner with us, of course, building the multi-resource kit. So who benefits from this project? First place, the teachers. Yes, the teachers from regular school, which are the regular teachers. We have teachers from the elementary school, secondary teachers of maths, of Portuguese, Spanish, philosophy, but also the special educators. But the students, the autistic students, of course, but also all the other students and all the other people involved in school. Evaluation, I think my colleague from ISCTE will talk about the evaluation model, so I will pass this one because I think I've talked a little bit too much. This is the site where you can see all the projects and what do we want to achieve. First of all, to promote ICT tools as a tool to promote learning, communication, and self-determination of autistic people. Like Adam said, it's important that all autistic students have a voice in the classroom, have a voice in the school, and using these ICT tools, they could promote that empowerment and self-determination. Second, to change something in the education community, to change the way as teachers, the way our teachers work with the students, and to promote the use of ICT tools to this change in the education system. Then, of course, the partners, the associations, the NGOs, all the community will use also this kind of material. Increase the number of schools trained to work with autistic students. This is a problem that we have in Portugal also, like Adam says. Most of the teachers, they don't have training in autism. So that's something that we do every day, training teachers in Portugal. And also we try to change somehow the public politics about the environment and about the ICT, the using of inclusive ICT as a strategy to change the environment of the school. Like Adam said, it's not teach is the whole environment of the schools and also is the whole environment of the school. Something that I didn't say before. Some of the training, the teachers, they didn't work only with autistic students, they work with the whole class. And some of the training, the teachers, they promote, I will change something in my school. I will put my school more inclusive in communication. So I think my colleague will talk a little bit about that. Some changes were made in schools and all the students were involved. And that's, like Adam said, is the future. Inclusion is for all the people, and we all are part in inclusion. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anna. And now I give the floor to Angélica Gutiérrez from Autismo Sevilla, who will present the experience in the project,
Thank you very much, Aurélie. For me, it's a pleasure to be here. I would like to describe myself. Thank you. I am a woman with the short hair, and I'm wearing a scarf and a pink jacket. Okay. Well, I work as a project manager in Autismo Sevilla. That is an organization founded by fathers and mothers of autistic people in Sevilla, the south of Spain. We work to promote the quality of life of autistic people and their families. And I am going to present the results of the application of the DiGitool's pilot course in Italy, in Portugal, and in Spain. First of all, we made a call for applications through social networks, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, in order to get the students for the course, the teachers. So we made a selection among the applications to have these students who were teachers in school with autistic pupils. There were hundreds of applications, probably due to the interest in the topic, but also because it has no fees. It was for free. The course has two parts, a theoretical and a practical one. The theoretical part included national legislation and specific resources to support learning and inclusion, information about what autism is, augmentative and alternative communication and information, and communication technologies. In the last part of the course, we encourage participants to work with the intervention for autistic students who they usually work with in order to have real cases for practice. These are the results in Italy. We had 30 participants completed the theoretical part and 23 the practical part. The tool covered in the course was Egeco, and the tools usually used by teachers were Arasac, Wormald, Live Worksheets, Microsoft Office, PowerPoint, Kahoot, and Canva. This is a picture, one picture of the course development in Italy. And the perception of the technical team regarding the implementation of the project was that there was a great interest from the teachers involved who wanted to learn an effective way to support the autistic students in the classroom. They share experiences, they discuss strategies, and they also prepared an individualized intervention plans under the supervision of our expert. In addition to this, they asked for more time for the practical component and suggested to be more directly involvement of the schools and also the families. About the results of the course in Portugal, there were 23 teachers that finished the theoretical part and 20 in the practical one. The tools that were covered in the course were Arasac, Padlet, Live Worksheets, Kahoot, Quizlet, Wizardme, Osac Browser. And the tools used by teachers were Arasac, Book Creator, Pick for Me, Kahoot, Genially, Eneso Verbo, Story Sequencier, and Talking Points. The perception of the technical team regarding the implementation of the project was that most of the teachers in Portugal were really learn a lot about the technological tools that can be used to better interact with their autistic students. Most of the participants focused on this increasing visual communication in the schools that they work. So pictograms were used a lot to adapt the context. In our opinion, it was a very beneficial course for the teachers because it allowed them to broaden the range of tools that can be used in their professional practice. This is two pictures of the development of the course in Portugal. And finally, the results in Spain, that all on-site students attended regularly, and we followed the program and provided support material. Between the sessions, the content was posted on the classroom, and the students could ask questions or clarify doubts during the sessions. There were some reflections about how the teachers can facilitate educational care, and we have put them written. Well, I will read it. I consider that the most important thing is to give visibility to people in the near environment of these students. In this way, professionals will be more and more trained in terms of the needs of the students, and we will have more notions of how to face to the particularities of autistic students. The training and preparation of teachers is fundamental and very necessary. The bank of activities adapted to the different educational levels for autistic students. It's also necessary to reduce the ratio in the classroom, and specialized training for teachers who work with autistic students should be mandatory. This training is essential, but not only in the professional education field. In universities and teacher training schools should be offered as mandatory training, because it would be a great advance in the development of their learning processes, shortening intervention times, being much more effective. Another contribution pointed out is to train the families of non-autistic students, the families of the classmates, in addition to the autistic students. And also a kind of supervision at home. And other suggestions or contributions were, well, congratulations for the work and planning. I would like to be able to receive this training through the public administration free of charge to teachers in the centers of education in the public system. I really like the training, and I will encourage my colleagues to receive a training of this type, because you never stop learning when you work with people. Thank you for all the information. It was great. And some people suggested also to increase more face-to-face places for the next course. It is supposed that it's going to be another one. And also to increase the practical part, and also expanding this training to other social sectors, and for example, a health system, and the possibility of visiting the center classroom in order to learn about the different materials and the structure of the classrooms. So we as a team, we are really happy with the results of the course and in the DiGitool project, and we believe that it has been very fruitful for all the participants in the three countries.
Thank you very much, Angélica. And then to conclude on the project DiGitool, I will give the floor to José Nogueira from ISCTE, University in Portugal, and he will present the evaluation of the project. Thank you, José.
Thank you, Aurélie. Good afternoon, everybody. I am a man. I use 2 pairs of glasses, and I am a man of middle age. Let me introduce myself. My name is José Nogueira. I'm a sociologist. I'm PhD in public policies, and I'm a researcher and a professor in ISCTE, University Institute of Lisbon. And we carry out the evaluation of this project. Okay. Let's talk about the theory and the methodology of the evaluation. Our approach covered 4 major areas. a pertinence and coherence of the project, implementation, and the satisfaction of the participants, the results, and the impacts. The evaluation theory that we used was based on the theory of change. The literature shows that schools in general are not prepared to work with autistic students using ICT. And we know that the learning success of these students would improve if these digital tools were used. These students usually have lower academic success and lower educational level than students without disabilities. So the initial expectation was that DiGitool could improve learning success of autistic students, could improve better level of qualifications, could improve better access to employment, could improve more social participation. The pilot project could also have impact on families and could also have impact on the education system in educational communities in 3 countries. This is the initial expectations. Okay, in the beginning of the project, we have quantitative and qualitative approach to evaluate the project. We made focus group with experts, and experts said to us that the project is important, is relevant, and the structure of the project is coherent too. The project also regards relevant and coherent with the families and with the professionals. Okay, let's talk about some results. As you can see, in Portugal, Spain, and Italy, the large majority of participants are teachers and are teachers female. The average age of the participants was between 42 and 48 years old. Most of teachers who joined to the project were special education teachers. So it's not very good notice. I'm sorry. If we think about inclusive school paradigm, we have to think about that. Why so large percentage of participants are special needs students? I'm sorry, teachers. In Portugal, in Spain, most of teachers covered are teaching in the first basic cycle. In Italy, it was a very similar division between the first and second cycles. Also, a smaller percentage, it's important, but important to highlight, is the participation of higher education teachers in 3 countries, 10 to 15%. Okay, we asked the teachers how the course had been important to improve their knowledge in autism field. This slide shows that the project improved the participant knowledge on concept of autism, causes of autism, and warning signs. As you can see, in the opinion of most of participants, the project allowed to improve their knowledge about characteristics of and potential of autistic people, changes in secondary education, and autism in girls or autism in women. More specifically, I'm sorry, I'm very tired because yesterday we went at 3 in the morning and I don't sleep very well. I'm sorry. I said that the project also allowed improved knowledge in participants in ICT, namely in augmentative and alternative communications in general, and in communicative fitnesses specific in autism. Okay, as we can see, in this slide show a high level of satisfaction with the course. We have high level of satisfaction in all items, and the next slide shows the same. Okay, let's talk about the final notes. So far, the project allowed to increase knowledge of teachers in inclusive education and in the autism field. Deepen knowledge about technological tools to support learning and communication in autism. The methodology was a success in 3 countries. Train teachers in new technologies to support education of autistic students. And we have a high level of satisfaction about the course. High level of satisfaction about the course in theoretical part and in internships. Okay, the project is not finished. And our evaluation is not finished too. In the end of the project, we will evaluate these results better, but we will evaluate the impact of this project. And we can do that 3 months after the finish of the project. We talk about the impact not only in participation teachers, but on their colleagues and in schools where they work. We talk about the impact on autistic students who participating in the internships phase and in their families. We talk about impact on educational community. For example, what lessons remained? What changes we can observe in the schools that this project carry out? We talk about the impact not only, yes, okay, I have a slide double. Disability needs is not to be an obstacle to the success. Stephen Hopkins say that, and this project allows to learn that it's possible to improve in success of autistic people, not only in school, but in employment, in family, and so on. We already know that new technologies help learning, socialization, and communication in autism field. ISCTE hope that good results observed on digital maybe also lead to change and impacts. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, José. So now comes the time for the exchange and question. I don't know if we have any questions in the room or potentially online. Sorry, I don't have access to the online chat. Just maybe also to mention that all the results of the project will be available online for anyone interested in using these results, building on these results, and so on. If there is no question, I think we can have a coffee break now, and the coffee should arrive in 2 minutes, and then we can reconvene at 20 to 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to our conference, and now we will start with the second panel, the first panel dedicated to access to employment, and with a presentation of the results of the Win With You project. But first, I would like to give the floor to our board member, Vincent Grimaldi, who will present scientific research about the barriers and the people from accessing employment. So, Vincent, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Aurélie. And the presentation is starting here. And ladies and gentlemen, it is really a pleasure for me to chair this great panel about employment for autistic people. My colleague, Professor Nunzio Casalino from the Louis Business School in Rome will talk about the Win With You project, and Carsten Lassen, CEO of Specialisterne in Denmark, will talk about his experience of the professional inclusion of people with autism. Both of them are on my left here. Allow me to begin with a scientific look at how your beautiful brain works. So there are many lefties around us. I've spotted a few. And when you are left-handed, it is not in the hand or the foot that it is happening, but in the brain. If you are a lefty, the way your brain is wired is different. And it is not a disease, as you probably know. Being left-handed or right-handed is in our genes. It comes from our parents and grandparents. However, 50 years ago, lefties were still forced to write with the right hand. See. And the problem was not lefties, but society's view of them. Today we have progressed, and there is not a coach of a team of football, tennis, judo, or fencing who would do without lefties in the team. So those coaches manage the neurodiversity of their team without even knowing it. 20 years ago, Professor Thomas Bourgeron, that is here on the screen, and his team at Institut Pasteur in Paris isolated a first gene variant contributing to autism. And since then, over 100 genes have been identified by researchers worldwide. Research shows that autism is linked to the combined effect of many small genetic variants. Bourgeron demonstrated that autism is part of the human neurodiversity and not a disease. It comes from for over 80% of likelihood. I have the pleasure of working with Professor Bourgeron on a large European research project called R2D2 Mental Health. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the European Parliament and the European authorities present here for your support to pan-European research on autism. And what you do is really important. Thank you very much. Allow me to give you an example of what is happening in your wonderful brain. Children have many more neurons than us. If you are a parent, you know that. Then, during their teenage, a phenomenon of pruning occurs. In autism, this phenomenon seems to be different, and it retains many more neurons than the average. And these neurons, as you can see on the screen here, show a noticeably different appearance. On the far right, you can see that they are more woolly in appearance, creating more contacts. Studies including Elise Robinson's in 2016 suggest that the autism spectrum merges in the continuum of the population. So it is not us versus them. It is actually all of us concerned. Indeed, the same genes implicated in autism appear to influence social skills across the population, suggesting that the autism spectrum has no clear threshold or cutoff. Research has shown that social charm, empathy, and the ability to make friends relate to, of course, practice and education, but also how many genetic variants of autism we have. In sum, we can conclude that the autism spectrum merges into the continuum of the population. In terms of behavior, it is not black and white. Considering that so many genes are involved, this chart helps you understand that everybody's brain displays strengths and weaknesses. So when we talk about IQ, right, I mean, you cannot summarize this everything in one index, right? And so here I've chosen for you 6 different dimensions. And in dark green, you see that many people with autism show strong skills, such as expertise and a powerful memory for details. But social skills might not be their cup of tea, however. Professor Simon Baron-Cohen and his team at Cambridge University developed a battery of tests to assess your natural technical skills that he calls systemizing. He showed that autistic people that were known at the time as Asperger's perform much better than the control group that you see here in gray. You see the Asperger's more than 50% above on the left side in green. And here is, by the way, an example of test. If the wheel rotates as shown, P will, and the right answer is C, move to and fro. I'm sure you found that out. And some people with autism have their own way of thinking, and they see the world around them differently, considering that they are wired just like all of us. We are 8 billion people wired differently, and we all see the world a little bit differently. They just happen to see the world a little bit more differently than the others. And in business, it is very good to have people around who see new solutions to old problems. This is a good thing. And they have other qualities worth mentioning. They are sensitive, independent, curious, persistent, good listener often, and loyal friends always. When everyone gathers around the coffee machine, we can count on them to make it work. This is the advantage of having them around, the advantage of neurodiversity. And so you are going to ask me, how many people are we talking about? Well, it is hard to say, but it is a lot. Allow me to take an example from France and to talk a little bit about figures. If we take a threshold of 1% of the population, which is called the cutoff, this is kind of the official rate applied in France. And considering that you have 67 million people in France, it's about 700,000 autistic people. And if you take into account the adult working population, it would be 360,000 adults in France. If you apply a cutoff of 2.5%, that is well accepted throughout the world and promoted by Tony Atwood, then you would have for France about 900,000 adults with autism, adults of working age. And if you apply the rate of Massachusetts in the US, which is the highest in among the 50 American states, if you apply that rate of 4.01%, then in France, you could consider that you have almost 1.5 million adults in the working populations, adult concerned. So the numbers are absolutely staggering. And the UN is actually worried, as all of us, that the overall majority of individuals with autism are still unemployed. And so let's dive into that kind of figures. Most of them have developed a high level of expertise. They have, for many of them, university degrees, multiple language skills. And despite those terrific qualities that I've been talking about 80% of adults on the spectrum do not work or are unemployed or occupy a job that is undervalued in relation to their skills. And so you are going to ask me, why? Well, I guess you know the answer. The answer is here on the screen. Recruiters, but not only, all of us, observers, whether judges or social workers, cannot relate to the aliens from Mars in front of them. People seek out other people who master the social codes imposed by a social majority, right? And it is what we call social projection, and it just happens that the person we like best looks just like us. This is not overt discrimination. It is a matter of cognitive biases. Cognitive biases are unconscious errors that our brain makes when facing complex decisions, such as recruiting. Daniel Kahneman, here on the screen, is a doctor in psychology who was awarded the Nobel Prize for the impact of his research in cognitive biases and their variability. For him, many of our business decisions are no better than flipping a coin. You heard me well. You would fare better if you put a coin on the table and you flip the coin. Cognitive biases cannot be prevented. They are hardwired in our human brain, but at least we can limit their effect. For instance, Claudia Goldin, that is here on the screen, studied the positive impact of blind auditions in the recruitment of talented female musicians in symphonic orchestras. They adopted blind auditions with a screen that you barely see here in the middle to hide the identity of the candidate from the jury. And the recruitment, this was done 50 years ago. It's not recent. The recruitment process is adapted to focus on musical competence and frame recruiters' unconscious cognitive biases. And so if you apply this to autistic people, it is interesting, but much more complicated. Job interviews are an integral component of the hiring process in most companies. And Lauren Rivera, a researcher at Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management, which is my alma mater, studied that the success of your job interview depends on your ability to, one, communicate your qualifications, but two, appear friendly, pleasant, and collegial, even if you are not in touch with customers or the public. And as you know, often the candidates on the spectrum aren't very great at that. During job interviews, candidates on the spectrum, they do not exchange small talk to break the ice. They go straight to the point. They think carefully about answering questions. They provide long and detailed answers. They speak a Shakespearean language. They have little eye contact with the recruiter. They speak a monotone voice with little body language. Basically, they are hard to read. In short, they are perceived as awkward after just a few seconds, explained Noah Sasson of the University of Texas. Because of the negative first impression, it is created in the brain of the recruiter a very strong anchor. And because of the confirmation bias studied by Daniel Kahneman, recruiters ask all the wrong questions, reinforcing that first negative impression. And therefore, the talented candidate with autism will probably be eliminated. Chris Welpley experimented that in face-to-face interviews. And he found out, you are not surprised, here the autistic candidates are in green, and the control group, neurotypicals, are in red. And so the control group outperformed candidates with autism on every dimension, except the middle one, the bizarre, awkward dimension. How was your candidate? Well, he was kind of bizarre, right? And so for that, autistic people are really, really, really good in face-to-face interviews. Then when it becomes interesting is that Chris Welpley tested asking recruiters to assess the written transcription of the candidate's answer without visual cues, and then look at the results. Basically, the situation is reversed. Individuals with autism outperformed the control group of neurotypical candidates when you don't have visual cues. The conclusion of this preliminary research is important for business. Employers who base hiring decisions on face-to-face interviews may actually reject the best candidates for a job, particularly if the position does not require strong social skills. During an interview process, candidates with autism often rely on the ability to compensate. They use the cognitive capacity to mask their visible autistic traits. However, cognitive capacities, as you probably know, if you ever passed oral exams, your cognitive capacities decrease with stress. And recruiting processes are particularly stressful situations, which is not good for autistic people. Microsoft, for instance, has addressed that problem with a 4-day recruitment process for coders on the autism spectrum. They adapted recruitment process, including mock interviews to help reduce the stress. So you have a mock interview in the morning and a real interview in the afternoon. And that real interview is interrupted with pauses that are regularly included to allow the candidate to relax and to drink, a little bit as we did a few minutes ago. In Europe, SAP is one of the first companies to have developed a recruitment program targeting people with autism with the help of specialist Turner that is here today. And beyond the recruitment of autistic talents, the whole company is now trying to adapt its processes to become inclusive on the entire human neurodiversity. Many companies have followed SAP in internet, manufacturing, oil, finance, defense, retail, food. We have learned from them that all management practices have benefited from the arrival of new colleagues with autism, not least because they challenge the status quo and push for continuous improvement in corporate practices. Managers supervising people with autism have improved their ability to listen, their openness, their empathy. In sum, the managers become better managers, and everybody, not only autistic people, benefits from it. Here, I've been focusing today on recruiting, but inclusion is critical as well. It is important to provide managers and the team with awareness training and to provide coaching and mentoring to the new hires. So what about the cost for employers? Well, several recent research show that hiring talent on the spectrum actually improved financial results, provided productivity gains, and gave employees, of course, a pride in working for the employer. In conclusion, allow me to put some words in the mouth of actor Anthony Hopkins, who disclosed his own autism in 2017. And he said it's a great gift, actually, to the media. Here you have Admiral Nick Hine who disclosed his autism in 2021. He had over 35,000 people under his command. And for him, there is no risk in hiring autistic people. He told me, I'm hiring all the autistic people I can. And he said, there is no risk since they are already all around us in lots of different jobs. And then, of course, in 2021, you have Elon Musk that disclosed in front of millions of people on TV his own autism. And he said to the media that when he was a young engineer, he wanted to get the job, but never got hired. And so my conclusion is that neurodiversity is profitable and challenges the status quo. The question is not, should we do it? They are already around us, but they hide and they do not contribute their full potential. And therefore, the real question is, why don't we start integrating more of them now? And so please, all of you here and listening to us, tell your business colleagues to join us. It is productive, it is profitable, and will create more jobs for people with autism. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for this presentation. Again, very inspiring. And I would like to give the floor now to Nunzio Casalino, who is the coordinator of the Win With You project.
Thank you. Aurélie, thank you very much. Welcome to everybody. I am introducing me. I am Nunzio Casalino. I am a full professor of business organization and human resource management. And I am here to present, thanks also to Autism-Europe that invited us, and especially thanks also to Chiara Gemma that hosted us in the main European institution. And, we are very happy to be here. The idea is was born because we have in our university, Luis University and Luis Business School, several students, autistic students that have difficulties to find the job and also to maintain the job on activities. So our idea was to study how to increase the knowledge, the experience of entrepreneurs, of managers, and to give them also some tools, some instructions to better manage this kind of persons. So we designed the Win With You project with the contribution also of the University of Campus Biomedico, Autism-Europe, Specialist Stern, and the European Center for Quality, and from 4 different countries. And this project is mainly oriented to understand and to help 2 kinds of target groups. One are autistic people, youth mainly, especially, and the other target group are entrepreneurs and managers that are usually not our participant in masters or other training initiatives. In particular, the project results that is a 36-month project that is completing. We will complete the project next August, at the end of next August, is divided in 3 different outputs. One output, sorry, I am to the same. I forget 3 different outputs. The first one was a very long activities of about 18 months that included our research activities, mainly oriented on literature review, because I will describe later, several surveys in different countries, and the creation, the design of a learning methodology, because our idea is to give some guidelines, some important tools to entrepreneurs and managers to help people, or this kind of people, to be included, to be involved in working environments. The second output was related to the creation of a platform, online platform, in which are available documents, reports, studies, literature in general, for people that want to study this kind of fields, and an open access platform with 12 learning modules that are the learning output number 3. The literature background, the literature analysis was based on the analysis of 134, because it's not synchronized, 134 articles and reports, thank you very much, Mr. in 4 countries, and was very important for the partners of the project, but also for the other people that were involved in our activities, because give us the possibility to us to obtain, what are the challenges that we have to valorize in a working environment. For example, we understood that understanding complex job application materials, or acclimatizing to new procedures and routines, interacting socially, the same that was already talked before, the soft skills also that were have to be improved, especially for this kind of person. Communicating, the communication skills are very important also for this person. Which was the problem, that in our analysis, only 14 articles and reports described this kind of strengths and the strengths and the potentialities of autistic people. Only the 10%. And this is this for us was very important to understand, because this is this gives us the point of view that in our studies, in managerial and economic studies, for example, there is not any sensitiveness regarding autism and in the other kind of these abilities. So we go in and we proceed to collect also several other information by surveys. So we interviewed 210 people in all the countries involved in the project, thanks to our partners, and also by giving them specific surveys to people with autism and to caregivers, because for us it was very important also to talk with caregivers, that they have several information about this kind of this person. So thanks to these surveys, we collected several other information that I will talk about later, and also was the occasion to collect also 18 inclusion cases from Italy, from Belgium, from Denmark, and from Bulgaria. Okay, and from the surveys, and this was very important also to increase the knowledge regarding the autistic field, we identified 35 critical issues and difficulties regarding the workplaces for these persons. Okay, especially regarding communication, regarding the misunderstanding or misunderstanding sometimes, regarding other kind of difficulties of integration, lack of communication, or other main less important but also existing issues regarding the integration, for example, with the co-workers, because very usually these persons are not well connected also with the co-workers, not only with the boss, with the entrepreneurs, but also at the same with the peers, And this information were collected in this report that is freely available. If you go on the website, you can download this study. This is a multi-language study in 5 languages, and you can obtain this information that I think are very, very useful, not only for entrepreneurs and managers, but for all people that want to understand how to better integrate this kind of person in our workplace. Okay? So if you want, please go on the website and download this study. It's multi-language. The second main aspect of the project was based in the learning content creation. And we designed two different multimedia learning paths. One focused on autistic people, and the second one oriented to, as I already said before, managers, entrepreneurs, but also staff of a company, teams, or other kind of person that usually are involved with autistic person inside a company. All the learning contents are available in 5 languages. This was also a very important goal of our project, because it's not easy also to localize, not only to translate, but localize the contents in the national languages. So, and at the end, starting from the experience of the survey, and of the report that we created, starting with the experience of our partners, we created 12 learning modules, 6 for each learning path. And not only, we created a multimedia tutorial to explain how to attend our course that is freely. You have not registered, you have not to put your information. It's open access and open access and freely to use by internet. We created 2 kinds of skill assessment tools: pre-quiz to give the possibility to evaluate before the training or the learning activities initiatives, and post-learning quiz. So at the end of this learning path, of the both learning path, you will collect a certificate of attendance that you can download, you can print, etc., etc. But inside each learning modules, we collected also case studies and best practices, because we think that it's very important to replicate the best practices in workplaces. This is what managers, entrepreneurs, professionals, consultants ask to university, for example. No? How can we solve this problem? How we can involve this person? So we tried to give them some best practices that all partners of our project collected. Sorry, I lost one slide. Collected in each country. This is important. In the detail, this is the learning path 1 description. As you can see, you can find the 6 modules that are open access. If you want to learn something regarding these 6 topics, you can participate and you can obtain this content. For example, introduction to work opportunities and the potentialities for a better inclusion, or essential of business organization, that is my field, for example, improving social communication, interaction, and multitasking skills, stress, anxiety, and frustration management, autism and time management techniques, because it's very important for them to better define the times and the rules in which how to interact inside the working places. Or again, organization and prioritization of tasks at works. The second learning path include that is oriented, I would like to remember, to entrepreneurs and managers, is more oriented in inclusive practices. So it is the main goal of our project. For example, how to better define the rules of environment and workplaces aspects, for example, to better set the right place for this kind of person, the right colleagues for this kind of person. Then also processes and steps to become an inclusive autism-friendly organization. I would like only to remember that at the end of the project, it will be possible also. It will be possible. This time is synchronized. It's possible also to obtain the label for the website of a company, autism-friendly organization. And it is very motivating system also to invite more companies to attend our courses. So we will give them this label. Or again, equal opportunities, autistic worker integration, etc., etc. In any case, you can find this on our web platform. In the next 2 months, we will organize online prototype events that will be very useful, like similar to this side event, to better refine, to better set some aspects of our training activities, and to better valorize and disseminate also the activities that we have made. And if you want and are you interested, you can subscribe our newsletter and you will receive the dates of the national events. Because we will arrange this online. No problem, you are not to stay or to come in Italy or in other countries. At the end of the one of both learning paths, you will obtain a certificate of attendance that will describe, in this case, is a template, but automatically will be generated a list of the modules that you selected, that you attended. And at the end, okay, all of you are invited also to the final conference that will be hosted at Lewis Business School University the next July 4, if you want, in which we will present all the results of the project. There are several institutions, ministries, etc., that will be involved, because our idea is also, as we are making now, also to sensibilize and to involve also the policymakers in this kind of initiatives, to transfer also our experience and to replicate our experience. And we hope also to continue to work, because after this project, we already submitted a new project like Win With You 2.0, that is the evolution, that is Learn Autism, learning and employment approaches for individuals with autism to enhance their quality of work life and careers. We hope to continue with these very good partners to continue in our initiatives, and at the end also to participate and to share our results also in other initiatives. For example, we other founded project or our grants like Horizon Europe, like EFC, like Erasmus+, etc., etc. I think I finished my presentation. I hope everything is clear. In any case, you can contact me or you can go on the website. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nunzio. It was extremely clear. And now I would like to give the floor to another partner in the project, a key partner, Carsten Lassen, who's the CEO of Specialist Term. Carsten, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, what a lot of words. I hope you are ready for even more words. I'll try to speak slowly. Well, as I said, I'm Carsten. I'm from Specialist in Denmark, and I have been invited to briefly touch upon how we, in a practical manner, go about creating sustainable job creation for autistic people in Denmark and all over the world. Thanks for inviting us. Thanks for creating this opportunity to meet like-minded people and to share ideas and vision. I think we are all on the same path, and I think we're onto something valuable here that can create value not only to the autistic community, but to the labor market in general. So Specialism was created back in 2004 and our vision is basically to create a world where everybody is given equal opportunities in the labor market. And as Vincent has told us, to give everyone equal opportunity, we should really treat everybody differently. So to be treated the same, you should be well, to be given equal opportunity, we should be treated differently. So that is a key takeaway. So if you can only remember one thing today, that's it. That's quite important. So that's why we were founded, basically to try to disrupt the labor market model, to try and create other ways of employing people, other ways of onboarding people, realizing that ever since the Industrial Revolution, it's been all about people, the individuals adapting to the company. So now we think it's payback time. It's about time that the companies adapt to the individuals, because we're simply leaving too many people behind if we do not change our perspective. So Specialisterne was founded in Denmark, but actually we now are as a global company. We have offices in all the blue countries. So I normally say that the sun never goes down on Specialisterne. We don't have an office in Africa yet. This is a little bit to do about market maturity. I mean, there's a will everywhere, but we are still picking the low-hanging fruits, although there are no low-hanging fruits. It's a lot of work because we are creating systemic change here. I mean, that does not happen overnight. But so far, we have managed to onboard more than 10,000 people worldwide. And right now, we are a company with 650 employees. And around roughly 450 of those are autistic individuals who are employed by Specialisterne in various countries, working as consultants or doing normally they're doing contract staffing work or managed services, whatever feature you would want to call it. Basically, where we hire people and then we rent them out to companies where they are doing some great work, and I'll get back to that. Just to give you a brief idea of who we are. So why is this important? This slide tells a lot about why this is so important. These are numbers for Denmark, but if I compare to other countries, it's kind of similar. This was done before the Russian invasion and before the market went crazy. But I think to a large extent, it is still true. In Denmark, 40% of the companies say that shortage of staff is the biggest challenge for growth at all. And that 1/3 of all positions have not been filled over the last 12 months. They've simply not been able to find suitable candidates for relevant postings. 50% of the companies have simply given up hiring IT staff, and 20% of all new postings in Denmark is about engineers. So this is what we normally in Denmark we call it like STEM competencies, and basically like the predominant STEM works is normally the kinds of competencies that we would say is also compatible with what we're looking into when we're talking about autism advantage. You've touched upon it, Vincent, earlier. So, and here's another fun fact for you. Last year, 14% of all graduates in the STEM area in Denmark did not have a job 12 months after their graduation. So why is this? Well, to some extent, it's because they have just put on some sneaks and a rucksack and then went to Thailand or Bali and sitting. That's a common thing to do in Denmark when you graduate. After studying for 15 or 18 years, you simply need a break. But I would say probably half of it is due to the lack of capability for Danish employers to employ these talents. And Vincent, you so beautifully explained why this is. Normally, I say we really need to cut down on what I call HR bullshit, which is predominant in mainstream recording, talking about you should thrive in a world of constant change, and basically no one does that. I mean, it's bullshit. And even the neurotypicals, we hate it. But if you say, no, that's not for me, you won't get the job. So you fake it and you adapt, right? And then you make coping strategies. Autistic people, to a large extent, they suck at coping strategies. I mean, and really, it should really not be necessary to create all these coping strategies. But that is predominant in the neurotypical world. So we have to change that. I think, so basically, sorry, rookie mistake here. So basically, what we are saying, for this to change, we should stop focusing so much on job profiles, like mirroring, copycatting each other, and start looking much more into what is the actual task you need solved. So if you take away the HR bullshit matters and say, we face all our customers with a smile, so yes, that's cool. But if you're doing, if you're in a back office position, you're basically, and you're doing quality assurance, you don't necessarily need to smile all the time, right? I can find really suitable candidates for you. They might not give you a smile all the time, but I'm pretty sure they can do the job. So, this is just one example, but if you go down like on standard job postings, it's full of it, right? So a crucial thing, if we are to change, we have to focus on eradicating cognitive bias, eradicating unconscious bias, all the stuff we don't know, all the discrimination we don't know we're doing because it's just how we present stuff, and then to really start focus on what is it actually, what kind of cases do we actually need solved, and create what we call like a universal design, and an inclusive work environment that accommodates everybody. It's not rocket science. It's a lot of common sense, basically. But if you don't think about it, it will never happen. I'll skip this one because we all know what the autism advantage is. But just focus on what the Harvard Business Review actually did a survey where they found out that autistic candidates were 60% faster than their neurotypical peers if the job is well scoped. If it is not well scoped, it's a totally different matter. But this is what it's all about, right? We should create a work environment and create a proper job scoping that makes it possible for people to thrive, to stay in your comfort zone. And then these are the numbers you get. We have a similar study from JP Morgan. We did the 200 recruitings for JP Morgan in New York, and they actually came to the same conclusion, that their neurodivergent colleagues were 6% faster than their neurotypical peers. And why is this? Good question. This is back to the discussion we had early on. Also about like keeping your focus. Our experience is that our autistic colleagues, they're really great at keeping their mind focused on one thing at a time. Most neurotypicals, when they've done a routine 10 times, they think, I'll just change it a little bit because I get bored. I'll change. On the other side, you might move out of scope, or you would slow down. Our experience is that our autistic colleagues do not fall into those traps as easily as. Sorry, exaggeration warning. I'm simplifying some stuff, but I think we all conclude that sometimes we need to simplify matters to get a point through. So I hope you can bear with me here. So the areas where most of our employees are actually employed is with working with data. So a lot with data integration, data migration management, data validation, everything to do with controlling quality assurance, autistic talent is annoyingly good at GDPR, and they have sometimes annoyingly good memory. That works very well. Everything to do with testing and obviously working into software development. So I'm saying this. Is this because all autistic talent should work with data and work with IT? No, but there actually, I find everything that works in an airport is great work for autistic talent. Everything that takes place, most things that takes place within the hospitality area is really greatly suited for autistic talent. If there's a manual, if there's like, ways to do stuff, normally autistic talent would do it better than the neurotypicals. Our challenge is that we are a private company. We need someone to pay our salaries. And unfortunately, in the hospitality sector, people are not willing to pay for our services. They would rather, go even further away and live with the fact that there is an extremely high churn rate. Whereas these types of jobs are normally people who are getting very well paid. So there's a market for having people, organizations such as ours, do the job finding this talent. Our research shows that we have like a 95% retention rate on all the candidates that we have recruited. If we are able to find them, and if we're able to onboard them in the companies, they stay there, because normally they are not so much focusing on making huge careers and making huge salary rises. They are focused on finding a place where they are giving the chance to excel, working with their deep interest, and having, really important, having a boss that knows how to manage them, because that is a scarce resource in today's business life. So the model that we are running, so this is a busy slide. When we present to a company, basically there are two legs. One is working with management programs, teaching companies how to manage neurodivergent talent, how to communicate, how to scope tasks properly, understanding that neurodiversity is not something we can discuss. It's like the law of gravity. It's there. It's the evolutionary fact that all brains are wired differently. So once you get that done and start working with it, you become a much better manager to all your employees. So that's one thing. That's a crucial part of what we do. The other part is that we provide talent, neurodivergent talent, either via recruitment projects or as contract staffing. So you can get the management program without the staff hiring, but you cannot get the staff hiring without the management program, because on the right-hand side, that's where we have the diversity, but to ensure that we also get the inclusion, that is what takes place on the left side. So really, that's our guarantee that it works, even when we are no longer involved. And we have had some prior experiences where we have kind of neglected this because the company said they were not interested in it. But what we find out is that, for one thing, you don't get the systemic change, and for secondly, it's too vulnerable, because if there's a change in management, then you're totally, they are totally left on their own, and that's just simply too vulnerable. So we don't do that anymore. But actually, this is also, when we talk to companies, they kind of like this, because it's all about lowering the entry barriers to neurodiversity hiring. I rarely ever meet a company leader who says, "What a lame idea! What the hell are you doing? Why don't you do something else?" I mean, that's the most silly project I've ever heard. Most company leaders say, "Wow, great, respect, keep up the good work." And when we say, "Okay, when should we start?" I'm free Monday. It's always like, "Oh yeah, but we are right in the middle of a transition. We are doing a turnaround, so it's not the right time." So when is the right time? It's never the right time. You basically have to jump in and accept that you cannot control anything. And there's probably some bits of your company that is not in the middle of a transition. Otherwise, you're really in problem. Then you should probably talk to McKinsey. So lowering the entry barriers, trying to secure the managers and tell them that you do not need a psychology, master's degree in psychology to manage neurodivergent talent. No, it's a lot of common sense. And basically just being aware and having someone telling you, no, this is not an awkward person. No, this is Daniel. He has autism, and that means that he can remember pi with 24 decimals. He does not get any information from looking you in the eyes. He might look in your mouth or in your hands. But that does not make him strange. It's just different, you know. And once you realize that, you kind of demystify it, and everything becomes much easier. Anyway, that's our experience. Right. Will we be sharing these slides afterwards? Otherwise, then I'll just skip this. This is just basics on how we do stuff. But one important thing is that we do not do cover letters and job interviews and no, because what you get from a job interview, you assess a person's ability to do a job interview. You don't know if they have written the application themselves. You don't know if their CV is bulletproof. So that's basically what you get. So it's just a real snapshot. So we don't do that. We work with testing. We work with cases. All our consultants have been on a 3-month program on site with us, making sure that we know all about the candidates, their strong points, both from the skills, social skills, personal skills, and their work skills. Very important. So the customers do not get to decide who they employ. We do that because we know every time we present them with 3 CVs, they would go for the one that looks more like, that is most similar to the boss. So thank you for sharing that. Right. So all kinds of training, but we're also training HR managers in improving their HR processes, and we can go into a lot of that. Feel free to ask. But basically, this is important. So when you start working with neurodiversity recruitment, neurodiversity management, our experiences from a lot of cases, we've done scientific research, and all the research shows that when you onboard neurodivergent talent, you become a better manager, and your neurotypical peers feel that there is a stronger team coherence. They experience that internal communication goes up, and that productivity goes up. So even from a pure sense perspective, this is important stuff. Everyone benefits from thinking about creating a inclusive work environment. Then just a few cases here, and basically the key takeaway here from the 2 cases I brought here is that the reason why we succeed here is because there is top management buy-in. Many projects in past in history has been like bottom-up projects. There's been the one person in the organization says, I want to do this, but it lives and dies with that one person. If you really want to do the systemic change, it should be sponsored from C-level, and there should be someone from C-level who says, we do this. So it's not a matter of when and why, or how. You should go do it. And the organizations where we have really succeeded are the organizations where top management has said, we are sponsoring this. We are paying. Don't think of headcounts. We are paying. Go out. So the only risk you run as a manager is the risk of trying to manage people that you have not managed before, but you do not have the financial risk on top of that, and you do not have to, include your ordinary headcounts as well, because that's a way of sharing the risk. And at the end of the day, you reach to the same result, just much faster. I'll say no more.
Thank you, Carsten. It's indeed really interesting to learn about a front runner in the field of promoting access to employment for autistic people. So I don't know if we have any questions, Anna?
I have a question and I have a story. I will begin with the story. We are now working with the Autistic Boy in our association. He began this process of getting a job, employment with another project that we had with Autism-Europe, which was IVEA. And he made all the process of the course, and he got a job in the restaurant and a pizzeria. And it was good in the beginning. He liked to be doing pizzas. He had a good environment with the colleagues, but the things begin to get wrong, social in the cuisine. So he went out, and he came to us, and this boy loves trains. He knows everything about trains. When I say everything, it's everything. So, and we were very lucky because we work with a municipality who has a museum of the trains. So we said, do you want to work in the museum? And he was completely out of himself. Now, let's split a little bit. He's working in the museum. First, he had the internship. Now he has a contract. And he is quite important in this museum because he knows everything about trains. So he's very important for the team because he knows much more than the team, but also the team because all of them love trains. They have a very good environment, and he has now, if you know him, he has a lot of friends in the municipality. He participates in a lot of activities of the museum and other parts of the museum. So what I discovered, it was quite important also for me and for my team. It's important for autistic people, and sometimes we neurotypical persons, we forgot that it's important to feel passion about what you do. That's the beginning of everything, to feel butterflies in your stomach. Because when we talk with the neurotypical person, you say, oh, how is your work? Oh, good. Do you like it? Oh, I have to earn some money. Are you happy? Oh, I'm always dreaming about weekends. We should dream about daily routines. We should dream about our employment. That's what happens with this autistic boy. He loves his job. He loves the mornings. He loves the Mondays. You know, I think that's what we do. That's our beginning when we work in our independent living model. The first question that we make is, what are your dreams? What makes bubbles in your stomach? What do you want to do? This is, I think this is very important when we talk about employment. We should talk about dreams, and we should talk about self-determination. What do you want to do? It's not what the guy of the pizzeria needs you to do. It's what you want to do. Okay? That's the story. The question is, because I live in these two worlds, you know, the autistic and social, and also the architectural and designers. And I wonder if you work with architects and designers, because in my architect world, after the pandemic, we began to discuss a lot how to build office, how to change office, how to build inclusive workplaces, and that's a discussion that we architects are having now. I don't know if you know that, but the architects are beginning to work in that, and that I think for autistic person it's very important to work the environment. And it's also very important to involve architects, designers, landscape architects, and so on. Even the people of the lightings, the engineers that work with the sound. It's very, very important. So that's okay.
We also take another question from Alvaro from EDF.
Thank you so much, Aurélie. So I wanted to thank all three of you for the presentations also before, but were very enlightening. And I just have a small comment about Mr. Larsson's presentation, because I really enjoyed learning about your initiative, which is, I think it's a very good practice, the social enterprise. I would just, one point about one issue. It makes a sense when you're pragmatic to think about the job that perhaps you find that persons, in this case with autism, might find more adapted to their will, their needs. Originally in the disability environment, when organizations, foundations, states as well, and companies started to hire persons with disabilities, they really aimed at job places that match their disability rather than the job places that maybe they wanted to be in. So while it makes a lot of sense to think about the tasks that are perhaps, after the studies that we've seen, very well done by persons with autistic within the autistic spectrum, compared to neurotypical persons. I understand that, for example, you work with the candidates as well, trying to find out what they want to do, and perhaps prepare the workplaces if it's not one of these very technical places, but rather places that require social skills, so they can be adapted, the jobs and also the companies. That means talking to the teams where they will work and with the bosses many times, because we have also seen persons within the autistic spectrum doing very different jobs and doing them perfectly. Maybe they require some adaptation, as we all do, depending on our disabilities or not disabilities. I just wanted to know if you also do this kind of job with the candidates, in case it is not a job specifically designed for person within the autistic spectrum. So thank you so much.
But I mean, one of the takeaways I did not present is I mean, I often say that when the autistic person is in his or her comfort zone, you don't think about the autism. I mean, rarely. I mean, so it's all about being in your comfort zone, right? And I mean, my comfort zone is not the same as your comfort zone, but I'm neurotypical, so there's like an 80% chance that it is pretty much the same, right? So for me, creating universal design is about creating a comfort zone for any individual, and if you manage to do so, then autism is not a disability. We do not consider autism a disability, by the way. I mean, it's the disability stems from the fact that we're not able to accommodate in the right way, right? So I mean, so what we do when we do our assessment, we ask questions. We also ask the questions that normal recruiters do not ask. Are you sensitive to noise, to smells, your whatever? You know, how do you feel about driving to transportation yourself to and from work, to make sure that we know as much about the person as possible. And then when we present the candidates to the company, we can say, this person, you know, would fit this. You might want to consider putting him or her in not in front of a window or far from the cantina, or maybe skip free seating for this particular candidate. So most things can be accommodated for, is our experience. So I think that's probably the key to what we're doing. And then of course, then we are giving them some do's and don'ts, and like, remember to say hi to your boss and give a smile. But then he's happy all day, and you don't have to worry about it. It might not be important to you, but it's important to him. So it's a small offer. So those kinds of things is of course part of our job readiness program. I don't know if that answers your question.
Microphone.
Sorry for the interpretation. No, yeah, it's but yes, but perhaps we can chat if we have a break, so we don't break at that time now.
Yes, maybe after, because indeed we are running a bit out of time, and we agreed with MP Gemma that maybe we are not going to have a break. So feel free to go and get a drink, but we are going to continue to give the chance to our other colleagues to present the project Infuse. So as I mentioned earlier on, the Infuse project is a project dedicated to to developing a training path for autistic people in Italy in the field of agriculture. And I will first give the floor to Alessandro Zanon, who is president of ASAT. Alessandro, you have the floor.
Grazie Aurélie, buonasera a tutti. Sono Alessandro Zanon, sono presidente di...
Good evening. I'm the chairman of ASAT. I'm one of the founders, so I run this association with a group of people which are professionals which administrate the association as a volunteer. We do not have any business purpose. We are a no-profit, so we provide health and social services. We have been founded okay, just one second. We act as a volunteer since 1999. We have health and social services, and our mission, which is a mission of all no-profit associations that support a protected and autonomous life. So we run various life projects also for the ones, for after our departure. We work also in other fields, for example, rehabilitation, so civil protection of rights, the principle of equal opportunities, social rehabilitation for autistic people. I will go into further details. And then we have assessment and diagnosis, so that we have a working group which is focusing on this with Erika Comencini. Then we are also accredited by the provincial authorities for health purposes, and yeah, that's it mostly. We provide also formation, information, awareness raising campaigns with the various events, with various trainings internally, as well as also with the other specific stakeholders. We also do some scientific research by our internal technicians. Well, I would say their work, much more their work than mine. So follow 8 key guidelines, which is physical and material well-being, emotional well-being, self-determination, personal development, social inclusion, rights, and empowerment. So all this to improve our quality life and also our families. ASAT Onlus, no-profit, basically provides 3 services. We have a clinic for children and for adolescents. So that means that there is speech therapy. There is also medical assistance, psychomotor services. Then there is also another part which is mostly dedicated to adults, with also speech therapy service, psychoeducational, and so on and so forth. Then we also have, as I said, this part for adults, which means people as of 18 years of age, and so the youngest is 18. The eldest I've met is and was 34. So there's also speech therapy is available for these category of adult people. We also have some school service. So just some figures just to show that we are not big, but we're not even little. We have 25 people working there, and 35 come to school, to our place, just to mention some figures. And basically, the most important capital we offer is the human capital. Almost 90% of our revenue is spent to cover various projects and our staff too. And so the purpose is, of course, to be as sustainable as possible. We'd like to stop here. Our technical experts will develop this into further details. So we are based in our building on a land of quite big, which we borrow for free. Then what we hope is that our facility will be enlarged with a greenhouse, for example, with new plants, because the idea is that to have these plants growing, to show what this work about, because we collaborate also with other external stakeholders. I also thank very much the European funds because they were very useful to launch this story, and I hope that it will be brought forward. Also, the social cooperative has helped us very much to build the installations. I also, by the way, I would like to thank the ones that have helped us with the bookkeeping, with report drafting. But now I give the floor to Mr. Meloni because he will describe in more details what this project is about. Thank you. Good evening to each and all of you. I'm a bit embarrassed, so I'm nervous and I'm stressed, and I hope that the projects will be can be illustrated. Although I'm very emotional, I am a clinical psychologist and I'm specializing in psychotherapy, and fortunately. And very happily, I am honored to be the clinical expert for this association. We wanted to do something for improving and increasing everything that concerns inclusion, because we don't want to propose any classical therapy, in our small cabinet, but we wanted to open our proposals on a wider scale. So why not? Then we decided to work on also access to the labor market, and to include also the autistic people of just any level. This is to be underlined. So in the world, we know that 15% of people have a full or a full-time job, including the autistic people. Unfortunately, in Italy, only 10% of autistic works, and so whereby for others, this rate goes up. We also know that 61% wishes to be occupied and to be included, and wants to have a job and wants to work and a future perspective. So what we're doing with our Infuse project is the following: to use our land in a different way, that is to try to develop and to enhance all orientations and motivation that are necessary for any innovative measure in the agricultural field, which means also to strengthen skills and personalized pathway design to foster accessibility to work and social inclusion. In particular, the specific ability in the agricultural policy, as I've said. We also want to raise the society's awareness of the conditions and needs of autistic people, and to create a cooperative territorial network to help us making this project just go on and grow bigger, maybe involving also other regions. And we also want to promote specific training within this sector. What are the specific objectives that have been pursued? Well, first of all, to improve the skills and competencies of the involved people, to develop effective orientation and motivation strategies for the implementation of innovative best practice in the agricultural sector. We want to also to promote the training operators in specific field, to promote gender equality and to overcome social and economic barriers that were met so far. I'm going to change my slide. We also wanted to promote equal opportunities, especially in access to education, training, and work across social boundaries. As a specific objective, we want to improve the skills of all our professionals, not only in terms of method, but also to see how we can convey this to our people, young people. So people have been divided into 3 groups. In the first group, you see young people that have potential capabilities to be kept, to be retained. So the idea was to develop all capabilities, and of course take into account the context given, and also to consider all elements. The second group consists of people of more than 15 years with a specific potential, development potential. So we have been able to provide them with the communicative potential, the communicative skills. For example, we have become aware that once the lecture was finished, once they were given what was planned to be given, then they would stop. On the contrary, the process is long and goes on. So you see all the skills and capabilities that were involved. The third group consists of people that have a very high level of functioning. So what we have added here is to provide psychological support, especially for the ones that were coming from previous experiences with no success, so unsuccessful previous experiences. And the idea was to support a positive experience made by other people to develop the various other options. And also to understand in the school and in the labor market. I now give the floor to Ms. Comencini, which is our psychiatric expert.
Buonasera, voglio anch'io ringraziare.
I would like to thank you for this invitation and this important moment of sharing. It is very important for us. So going into further detail in this project, this Infuse project, I could say that we have to divide this project into several phases, since they should be bearable for students and operators alike. Each phase was monitored in detail by doctors to see what was the integration, the adaptation of students. The first phase is the initiation phase, developing specific skills, as Dr. Meloni was saying before, planning and organization for agricultural work of students with the needed materials and the network that would be used, thanks to the association giving us all the necessary materials. The second phase is the field preparation and sowing of plants, then herb harvesting, and the last 2 phases, phase 4 and 5, the phase packaging, drying, division, and selling, of course, at the end, only in some specific structures. The training was aimed at a different idea, so that students could understand what it means to work in this specific field. So we tried to explain what work it was, what were the rules, the socially acceptable and not acceptable rules and behaviors in the workplace. They were using materials that were potentially dangerous, so they had to understand the rules and all the procedures to work safely and within a group. It was very important to raise awareness of students on how they could work in that context. We were quite surprised to see how they could bear fatigue and frustration, and how they respond to sensory stimuli in this context. It was really stimulating for them. We then assessed the preferences they had within the different procedures that they had to endure, and then we helped them to write the CV and how to manage and prepare for a potential job interview. And we hope they will then have access to such interviews externally. As I was saying before, we also worked on how to better stimulate the necessary social skills in communication, mimics, tone, volume, and the pragmatism in their language. These are important vulnerable points and barriers that could hamper inclusion and keep inclusion and integration for a prolonged period of time. We also try to work on their awareness of different rules and how they could understand who their colleague is and who is the higher responsible official that they could address in a different context and what is needed in different contexts. It was also important to monitor during the whole project the level of anxiety and how to manage it. We succeed in managing anxiety since we could give them an option on how to react. So through our actions, we could develop response on how to out-manage anxiety without another external intervention by surrounding operators. The adoptive methodology is based on the international literature following guideline 21 in Italy. The tools we used were anticipation, temporal structuring through each phase with a very structured model using role playing and the possibility to imitate what was doing the operator or the other students around them. We then created a manual. We use specific visual supports. We also developed an infused training manual for operators that then reiterated the manual that was used in several procedures with their students, and then integrated video modeling to reinforce the strategies that were needed in this context. So, what are the results that we achieved? Based on what we decided was our aim at the beginning, we achieved these results, the acquisition of skills and competencies to enhance integrative autonomy, even through time, with significant results, even without the help of operators. Behaviors that challenge the ecological environment decreased through time during the project. We saw a slight increase in spontaneous communication skills among students and between students and operators in different contexts, even outside the project and the working hours. We saw an enhancement of executive functions and how they focus on the tasks. At the end of the project, we realized that leisure-related skills were increasing in quite a relevant way and spontaneously among students in different working groups. This is also related to the perceived well-being that they felt during the project. They could also experience the ecological experience, but also a gratifying one. They feel more integrated, both in an emotional and cognitive way, during this period of time when they were working through the project. We thank the territorial network, the collaboration with the Fondazione MAC, the foundation in Trento, and the social laboratory in Trentino. Thank you.
Yes, we have a video that I think will be starting.
Adesso vi facciamo proprio vedere.
So now you can see concretely what we have done.
Forse.
Thank you so much, and to all the representatives from ASIAT. And now we'll move on to another practice, Work-Aut. And I invite Stefania Grimaldi to take the floor now.
Buonasera a tutti.
Good evening. I'm quite excited. After all these good examples that I've seen so far, I'm quite nervous to take the floor now. But I'm trying to be brave and tell you about our story. Work-Aut is B Corp society. It was born in May 2021 in full lockdown. Because of the COVID lockdown, the adults you can see in this video, these are some of the co-workers that are working in my cooperative Work-Aut. They are all adults. They have not yet found a place, and they could not really find a job and how to position themselves in the labor market because of their diagnosis. So their mothers asked me what they could do, because the only thing they could do was to go out and see their friends, their social life. And because of lockdown, they could not go out and see each other. They have different levels of autism. Their parents asked us to help them to be proactive. They are working in the province, in the rural area in the Puglia region. They developed a serious behavioral trends. They also threatened to commit suicide. I have a teenager. He's quite calm, actually, but I was really touched by their situation. And with 6 families, we decided to experience these kind of working environment. I asked one of my friends, he was not finding enough candidates for that job during lockdown. We could not work if you did not have certifications and certificates for vaccines and so on and so forth. They could not find anyone to work with them to package grapes. So they were working together with specialists and expert doctors. Once they knew what they had to do, they did not really need to be supported by scientific experts. in just 30 minutes, they understood what they had to do. In 1 year, we saw, and you could see the latest situation and video, we could integrate 4 of them in the quality assessment in fruit and vegetables in the supermarket chain, Italian supermarket chain Coop, where they then proved to be more efficient in how to assess quality, the integrity of the different packaging. Now they're helping in collecting data. And they were quite natural in how they work because they were exposed to that environment, but they were working now in a non-protected environment. They were prepared to the different phases and different work that they could have. But it was quite surprising for us how they could work feeling at ease, because they were motivated to show what their competencies were in a world that were considering them as not appropriate to that context. Work-Aut was the dream of a group of mothers and fathers. I'm sorry, I'm getting quite emotional here. They want to demonstrate that we have competencies. These people have the competence that goes well beyond their diagnosis. They just need to be concretely shown and valued so that they can have an opportunity to work as a social cooperative, thanks to the help of several consultants that helped us to create temporary contract for these workers. I offer as a temporary agency different kind of opportunities in restaurants, quality control, or several other sectors. We have different sessions when we don't ask to be paid for their training, but if that worker is for that job, we decide to draft contracts, and the cooperative will train, support, and organize shifts for those workers, and then they are paying the wage that was agreed before, as per the regulation at a national level. This is a safety for everyone. We managed to follow the different workers' inclination attitudes. We encourage you to try to find the talent, the different competences. These they have different skills. They have to understand what are their interests. Working on that, thanks to the different scientific experts that we have to support us, we can give value to their different talents so that they can make their dreams come true. The most recent one is this one, working in the European Parliament for an MEP. Just a year ago, this was unthinkable, but I would like MEP Chiara Gemma to talk about it. She gave us this opportunity, organizing and planning these possibility to integrate someone inside the European Parliament. I would like to have a feedback on the emotional competencies of 2 different workers. There are 3 actually, but one just started today, to work in another country far away from home in a very prestigious institutions. I would ask her to comment on their outcome. Thank you. And sorry for this passionate speech. I would like to point out something about this experience. It was really emotional, this process that we went through. I was quite surprised by their passion and their motivation. Alessandra, you can see her in this video. You can't really hear her, but you can see her. Alessandra, Luigi, and as of today, Mario, they were charged with different tasks. They had to classify all the different work of arts that are here inside the European Parliament. They were working as tourist guides, so I would like to give more value to their experience. And so they had to list all these work of arts, different portraits and sculpture that are inside the Parliament. What was their particular task? They have 5 hours during the week. In the morning, they would go around the Parliament to take photos of the work of arts that were quite interesting for them. And in the afternoon, they were working in the office, downloading all the photos and writing comments based on their observation, so their emotions and what they felt and perceived. It was something that they did with extreme precision and seriousness. I asked Luigi to stop working just 5 days before due time, 5 minutes to 12. He did not want to stop before 12 because he would have to stop at 12. So, unlikely to what we are used with other workers, we are often complaining about our working hours. They have this seriousness and preciseness in how they work. Alessandra was the first one. Then came Luigi. These two experiences were quite impressive for me, because then I could get access to this vulnerable world. But once they are integrated, they will allow us to understand and discover something more, something that is quite extraordinary. As it was said before by our colleagues, and thanks to their experiences during this afternoon, we can really understand that inside each of us there is a talent, competencies. We have to create the conditions for them to show them fully. It was not really easy for them to orientate, to get a clear orientation inside the Parliament. It was difficult just for the first 2 days. Then they could manage to move around quite easily, so that they could better understand the different location inside the Parliament. It's also quite a vast building. This is Luigi. The project will end in June. We will then have an exhibition with the photos in the Puglia region. We were then welcomed by the President Metsola. She is well aware of this project. Maybe the President will be at the exhibition, the end of this project. We really want to show how we can work when we have the concrete conditions free to become true.
And now, last but not least, Pietro Cirrincione, who's a member of the board of Autism-Europe.
Ok, ho una presentazione.
I just have a presentation, the importance of developing multiple employment opportunities for autistic people. So next slide. Article 27 of the UN Convention on Work, on the right to work and employment. You can see the quotation, the right that in principle is not really applied. 85% of people on the autism spectrum are unemployed. This is not only linked to intellectual disability, because intellectual disability is present only in 30% of the autism spectrum, and for 50% the cognitive level is average or above average. So there are other factors, social factors that come into place here. One of these factors is well explained in the General Comment number 8 to the UN Convention last year in 2022. This is a value system called ableism. It's a sort of discrimination considering certain typical characteristics of body and mind essential for living a life of value. Non-standard people are left aside because it is based on strict standards of appearance, functioning, and behavior, and it comes from a medical and charity model of disability. Another factor is the lack of reasonable accommodation for autism. It could be individualized according to the personal profile of the worker, but we should also always consider the sensory overload, attention to noises, lights, smells, crowded open space offices that could lead to stress and fatigue, and the social overload. Interaction with colleagues and clients are important, but should be modulated to the skills of the worker. A reasonable accommodation is not limited only to the environment, but also awareness raising. Colleagues should know information about autism if the worker consented to disclosure. Removing attitude barriers. The attitude of colleagues should foster inclusion, understanding, and acceptance. And then removing behavioral barriers. Colleagues should respect characteristics and needs of the worker on the autism spectrum. The job coach is very important because he or she knows the worker and could act as a mediator. They can explain colleagues and managers the strengths and difficulties of the worker. They could also identify the most difficult sensory elements and social dynamics to manage. The job coach monitors and assess the development of job skills and also the proposals of a reasonable accommodation for the workers. You all know the traditional model for including people on the autism spectrum in the workplace, the train-in-place model, where people are prepared in advance before starting to work with social skills trainings, vocational trainings, respecting expectations and preferences, training on the rights of workers, safety at work. But there's also an alternative model, the place and train model. Training happens on site after the workers started working in that position. For some people, this model is more effective compared to the first one because it allows to have access to that job without years of training, and helps us to keep that job more easily. Thank you.
Bene, siamo arrivati.
So we are coming to the end of these very intense event. We are deeply encouraged to go on in what we do and with our commitment. I would like to thank you all for participating to this event. I would like to thank the speakers giving their contribution to this event. I would like to thank them for the suggestions, the recommendations that they made for a new perspective on the topic of autism and how they made those better experiences more simple. With those that are suffering from autism, there are 3 key ideas that we should promote further: support and nurture. The word training was the first word that was uttered since the very beginning and then was detailed further. Training is something that is very fascinating for me, and I think that we have to work a lot on this. As for the specific topic, I think, and I do repeat this to my students at the university, on this topic, on disability, I think that we have to value human skills and then professional skills. If we do not have that sort of sensitivity and that ability to take care of the other, all these good projects and good actions could not be concrete. This all depends on how we adapt our behaviors to the surrounding environment, and the environment as well should be adapted to these people. And then comes the challenge. We have this great challenge before us, a question that is quite difficult for us to deal with. We don't have all the tools to act on it. Autism is not a tragedy, but ignoring it is a tragedy. So we need to change our perspective, as our colleague was saying before, becoming manager of our own skills and competences. This means accepting the challenge. And it is also a challenge to turn the perspective. We have a different horizon compared to what we believed before. So we have to look at it in a different way so that we see these people in a different way, because they voice an intrinsic difference that should be further discovered and promoted, and also, of course, protected. I would like to define them, like all other people with disability and like everyone else, as different people. I like them to be different and not diverse, because being different and not divergent means that we are something that is other, but that is adding something, because it comes from the Latin word, and it means adding, bringing something, from the verb fero. So we are bringing something, but the other person should allow you to consider that person different, but bringing something with him or her. The third idea is support. We need different types of support, as we have seen in these 3 different projects, giving us back that hope to give these girls and boys the opportunities they need. So everything is possible if we believe in this project. We all are sensitive to this topic, to support people that are different. Thank you for your participation, and thank you for how you shared your knowledge and your time with simplicity, familiarity, and your strict way. Thank you.